Hi, everyone. Before I get to the episode, I want to take a moment to address the United States Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade on June 24th, which stripped away the right to have a safe and legal abortion. Restricting access to comprehensive reproductive care, including abortion, threatens the health and independence of all people, which we have already seen with abortion bans and restrictions in countries like Poland and Malta. This decision has dire consequences and could have harsh repercussions for other landmark decisions within the United States. I encourage our audience, American and otherwise, to learn more about what you can do to help at podvoices.help. I encourage you to speak up, take care, and spread the word.
Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. And now your host, Maricella Herrera.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Ellevate podcast. I'm Maricella Herrera, your host, and today I'm here with Myra Robinson, who is my co-host for a couple of episodes. Hey, Myra, how's it going?
It's going good. How have you been?
I've been good. Running, training, working, running, training.
What don't you do?
Anything else, basically.
Superwoman over here. I like that energy.
I don't have a life. That's basically what I'm saying.
I went to the gym today, so that was an accomplishment. I will say that.
Ooh, I actually did see you had on your Slack status. Maybe it was earlier this week, one day in the morning, that you had a crying face that says going to the gym.
Yeah, that was an accurate description of my emotions. That's exactly how I felt. But you know what? It's all about the glow up. You know what so it's like we're going to work on some things. And I can't believe I forgot. I was thinking about it. I was like, I'm going to be getting married in a couple months. I need to go shave a couple pounds off, make sure I look good in my dress.
Wait, you forgot that you're getting married in a couple of months?
I did.
How do you forget that you're getting married in a couple months?
Well, it's just like sometimes your brain can only handle so much information at once. And so I just mentally blocked that out. And the stress that comes along with planning your own wedding. And it just came back to me. And like, you have still a lot to do. Just because you have the big things done, there's all those very small details that you forget about. And they're like adding up. So I'm like, oh man. And gym was one of those things. I was like, ooh.
But you know what? The gym is a good thing to do because it will help you with endorphins and your mood and stress release for all of the other planning stuff you need to do.
I hope so, because when I walked out of the gym today, I was like, that hurt. So if that's what endorphins are, then I have a long hill to climb, but we're going to do it.
It's just a matter of a couple of weeks to get into the habit. That's all it takes. Getting into the habit. I woke up today at 6:30 and went for a run. And I do not wake up early, so that was a feat.
Good for you though.
Yeah, it's just too hot in New York. If I try to go for a run at any other time, I may die.
It can't be hotter in New York than in South Carolina. No way.
I don't know.
Like it was like 90-something degrees.
Yeah, about the same.
Really? Oh my gosh.
It was about 90. Yeah, not 90 something, but definitely hot and definitely humid. Like what we all forget is that Manhattan is an island.
That's right.
And it's like it's sticky. And I'm from El Salvador, so it's really sticky.
I hear that.
Anyway, so what have you been into this week?
Well, I've been kind of getting in my artist zone. So as we mentioned last week, I've just recently moved in with my fiance. So getting like my little art corner together has been like super fun, but it's like there's other things that go along with it. I need to get the environment right, if you know what I mean. So like right now I'm really focused on finding a couple of vinyl. I just need to beef up my collection right now. And so like I'm looking for jazz or just purely instrumental albums. So I feel like that's just going to help me like lock in and create something. Plus I've been like taking some like pictures and like screen grabs of like really cool things that are inspiring. So it's like, I'm getting in back into like my art zone, or just things like you sometimes find that you get away from as you get older. So trying to reunite with that.
You're calling me superwoman, and here you are planning a wedding, working, doing some art, going to the gym. Good job.
Thank you.
Good for you.
So outside of running, like, because, oh, God bless you for being able to do that. But what else would you say that you've been into this week?
So there's a couple of things actually that I need to update everyone on. Well, first off, I'll say what I've been into this week. So I've the fact that I'm training and running a lot means that my favorite podcast, which are My Favorite Murder, of course, and Last Podcast on the Left, because of course I am terrible and love cheesy, not cheesy, but love funny true crime.
Mm.
And I they can't get out fast enough for me to like have enough stuff to listen to while I run. So I've started listening to my first audiobook. I had never done an audiobook.
Mm.
I am an old soul and like to read with my eyes. And this one's The Power of Moments, and how, you can build different moments that are magical and memorable for people, whether you're a business, whether you're just, a human. And it's so interesting. And I think about it a lot as I've been listening to it, because at Ellevate, we try to build magical moments for our community. We do it with Mobilize Women. We do it at our roundtables. We do it through our squads. And like, that's, it comes back to that saying, people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's so important. And there's so much more we could be doing to create those magical moments. So I'm excited. I'm excited to discuss with our team as I finish it. So that's one. That's kind of something I've been nerding over in the last few days during my runs. And then the other thing I need to update people is I have a new kitty cat.
Oh,
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah, so I'm currently fostering her. We are trying each other out. She's extremely scared.
No.
I lost my cat Ginger, who I loved with all my heart and still do. I lost her earlier this year in January, and finally got to a point where I felt, like I could open up my home to another little fur buddy. And so now I have Toffee here. Her name's Toffee, and she's really cute and really scared and keeps hiding. But I'm sure she'll come out of her shell.
That's such a cute name.
My mom doesn't like it.
I mean, well, because, you know that a cat recently walked into our lives, was just sitting on the porch crying for help, and his name is Peaches. So Peaches and Toffee, that sounds so cute together.
That also sounds very delicious.
It really does. Somebody throw that on the menu real fast.
Peaches and Toffee. Yeah, Toffee. My mom wants her to be called Cleopatra, so I'm toying with the full name, Toffee Cleopatra Herrera Avila, which is terrible.
But it's so terrible, it's good.
I know.
So
I feel the same way.
yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Toffee. I'll keep you all posted. We can share. Actually, if you're interested in seeing Peaches and Toffee, you can look at our Instagram. We shared a few pictures of our cats for International Cat Day a few weeks ago.
Proud fur moms.
Proud fur moms for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's go into our episode. This is still another interview that Kristy had done a little bit ago. I'm very excited for this one. Sylvia Bugg is PBS's Chief Programming Executive and General Manager. She's bolstering PBS's commitment to be a vital community resource through her focus on initiatives that touch social justice, climate and environment, and health and wellness. So I'm very, very, very curious to know what they're doing and how they're really moving the needle, not just providing education, but what they're doing internally too. So let's go to Kristy's interview with Sylvia.
Hello, Sylvia, and welcome to the Ellevate podcast.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I cannot wait for our conversation today. We have so much to cover. But let's get started learning a bit more about you. Could you share with our listeners who you are and how you got to where you are?
Sure. So I am the Chief Programming Executive and General Manager of PBS, Public Broadcasting Service. So our headquarters is located in Arlington, Virginia. So we're just outside of Washington, D.C. And I started in this role almost 2 years ago during the pandemic. I had been a veteran of PBS. So this is my third stint at the organization. So I guess one would say that public media just runs through my veins. So this has been such a unique time and opportunity to be back with the organization. So I've in total spent half of my career, 15 years plus, in public media, and the balance of that working for Discovery. So I've only ever worked in sort of two industries in media throughout my career. So I feel incredibly fortunate to have an opportunity to have been on sort of both sides of the spectrum. And I think particularly now, in the midst of so much that has been happening over the last 2+ years, and to come into this role and really think about a strategic vision for the future that aligns with PBS's mission and content strategy, how we're looking at engaging audiences across multiple platforms, how audiences are changing in terms of their viewing habits and media consumption. So all very exciting in these times that we're in, that I'm back with PBS.
What are some of the trends you're seeing right now? You're talking about audiences engaging with media. I know there's been a lot of change in storytelling and format and representation, and there's media's in such a forefront of our lives. But what do you see in terms of some of the major changes that are shifting the industry?
Great question. I think one of the areas that I am proud of at PBS is that we've always centered inclusion in our storytelling and amongst those makers who tell our stories. And I think particularly over the last few years, it's just been an opportunity for us to amplify and enhance some of that work that had been taking place. I think one of the other trends is if we look at how audiences are consuming media. There are many more ways that you can consume content these days. So it's no longer that remote and you're watching linear broadcasts. We also consume media on our smartphones, on our tablets, on our laptops. So it's sort of a widening in terms of the distribution. And so you hear a lot of organizations say we meet audiences where they are. So I think now more than ever, we've seen some of that evolving of how audiences are thinking about different ways that they can consume content. And I think for organizations like PBS and other distributors, that's super important, because we're not only thinking about the kind of content, the stories that we tell, which I think for PBS are great in that we're a trusted organization. So the content that you're getting is of a certain caliber and quality. But then when we look at the distribution platforms, there's just so many more opportunities. So we've got to ensure that we're maintaining this ongoing, continuous stream of great content. And then how we work with our PBS member stations, I think for us, that's always a great opportunity to look across the country at all of the markets that have a public media presence and PBS station. So for us, it's really looking at audience makeup. It's becoming more diverse, but so are the platforms in which this content is presented. And then geographically, diverse in terms of a lot of the great stories that are coming out locally from local places and people, and also regionally. So there's a lot going on there, there to sort of unpack. But it's also very exciting in terms of potential in some of these areas for us to grow, evolve, I think, and innovate.
Well, and talking about innovate, I know, especially with our listeners, there's a number of companies out there that have been around for a long time. They have a history. There's, a legacy of how they do things and the way that they approach maybe their customer or their service. And sometimes change can be really hard. It's hard to come in and steer the ship, if you will, in a different direction. Any lessons learned for you? I mean, PBS is just such like this strong brand and foundation. But yeah, I mean, change is an important part of businesses like evolution and sustainability. And so how did you approach that and, driving that innovation, driving that progress within the organization?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And I think it goes without saying, any kind of change is always sort of different. It's always evolving. We've got to think with that sort of adaptive mindset. And even in some cases, it can be a little daunting and scary. But I think in terms of the work that we do, we are a 50-plus-year-old organization. And what keeps us thinking about the innovation, I think, is often rooted in the media makers and the storytellers we work with, because we really do look for across the general audience programming stretch of content, what are new innovative ways to tell stories? And so we're really looking at those opportunities across our content that can go beyond just a particular program or piece of content. So when we work with producers to develop their ideas, it's what do you want to do in this space beyond just making a documentary or a piece of content? What is it that you want to do in terms of engagement or beyond broadcast or beyond a streaming opportunity? Because we do a lot in the engagement space. And so when we talk about some of those content priorities, we think that's where a lot of the innovation lies in terms of how we think about extending the value and how this content can be used to spark conversation. It's not intended to lean one way or the other in terms of what makes for sort of a good decision or outcome, but we're just here as sort of creative conveners and providing those spaces to innovate, to tell stories in unique ways, to look across multiple platforms. So that's all sort of change wrapped, I think, in innovation. And the fact that how we work, particularly in general audiences, we give filmmakers that time, right? That's often needed to really do some deep R&D, think about the story they want to tell, but also think about things like the learning media education aspects of the work that we do. Where can it rest in short form in terms of our own PBS platforms, third-party platforms? So I think for me, when we talk about the change piece of it, it's really getting, I think, leaders, including myself, our teams, to really consider it as an opportunity to innovate and not being afraid to go outside of the normal box, if you will, and think about what could really make for an interesting idea, how you tell a story, how this is immersive media and content, and then what is it that we think about would we want to measure and define success. So there's a lot of opportunity there, but I think in order to grow and develop and really look at this sort of next opportunity in media as leaders, we really have to encourage that and think about what could be potentially great outcome and success in how we approach that work.
I think you used the term, was it creative convener?
Convener, yes.
And I like, that really stuck with me, right? Because you hope that, yeah, media is going to spark a conversation. It's going to, get you to think, give you a different perspective. And then how do we create space for those conversations that, we distill it more and process it more and take it to the next level. And we've certainly, over the past few years, I think, fed into, a narrative and to a degree, a reality around these opposing viewpoints and, what not to talk about over the Thanksgiving table, and, feuds within families over politics or health or a lot of these issues. But framing around this, like, creative convener is, to me, just such this huge opportunity around, like, how do we bring people together to have real conversations, to find some middle ground, to maybe change their perspective or to elevate their perspective. And
it's interesting.
It's a big it's a big onus on your shoulder.
I think one of the key aspects and how I sort of talk about creative conveners is, imagine the old sort of town hall model, right? Where you would get people together around a particular piece of content or a topic and sort of bring people together in the public square, if you will. I think one of the things that over the past 2 years during the pandemic that's taught us is about that creative piece and innovation, in terms of you don't need necessarily to have that in-person experience. And we've learned a lot in terms of, yes, being in the square boxes, but how can we be immersive as we're thinking about keeping the conversations in positive spaces in terms of having a healthy dialogue, but even how these conversations come about. And then some of the immersive ways that we go away from that experience, but there are aspects of it that really stay with us. And I think with some of the technology and, again, immersive media, and we in PBS work with so many amazing creators and emerging media, that to me is an opportunity. So again, it's not, we want to come into these spaces and sort of give you directional pathways to say, here's how you should arrive at a decision, but we want to give the context. And I think that's one of the great aspects of what we do in public media, is the content, but it's also the context. And so when I talk about being able to go deeper, some of the questions that really guide our work, and my team and I, we've talked about this a lot, and that is to answer the questions of why this piece of content and why now? What is it about this piece of content that PBS and public media can provide that really allows a story or topic to go much deeper in terms of giving the background and the context, but a deeper understanding? And so again, yes, there are probably other media organizations out there that do this, but how we think about sort of reimagining some of these public spaces. And I think, if anything, it becomes more additive, right, in terms of looking at the future, that it may be some combination of bringing folks back together. Certainly that would be wonderful, but we've been able to accomplish a lot with limitations that we've had over the couple years in terms of media and technology, that has allowed us to continue to be in spaces where we otherwise may not be. So here's just an example that we did a series with Professor Henry Louis Gates Jr., Skip Gates, about the history of the Black church. So we did a bunch of engagement, and it was in the height of the pandemic, that allowed me to be, for example, with a community in Tennessee or in Alabama, and I'm based here in the Washington, D.C. area, but it was just great to be in the company of people in that community, stakeholders and teachers and audiences, to really hear their perspective about the influence of the Black church within their community. So that was great in terms of being able to not physically be there, but to still experience it. So what did we learn from that? That we can stretch ourselves and be more innovative and thinking about how to continue to engage in a more amplified way that sort of takes us out of that traditional box, if you will.
Are there other topics or creators that you're particularly excited about that you can give us a sneak peek on what might be coming out?
We have a lot of great content that is making its way right now across PBS platforms. So we premiered a new series called The Great American Recipe. It's about talented amateur chefs who are vying for the Great American Recipe. Alejandra Ramos is the host, one of the sort of guest chefs from the Today Show, and she's also a book author. We have great judges, Tiffany Derry being one of them, from the Great American Recipe that we premiered. And that is a new show that combines sort of cooking and amateur chefs who vie in a very friendly and competitive way for who has the greatest American recipe. And so we also have coming right after the 4th of July, a new series on the great Muslim American road trip. So that will be starting soon. America Outdoors with Baratunde Thurston, who is an author, a writer, and he explores the great outdoors. So that's all happening over the summer, which we're super excited about. And then this fall, we've got a lot of great content, including Ken Burns, the U.S. and the Holocaust. We've got Skip Gates, Making Black America, that's coming, that sort of looks at that history. And then we also have the history of hip hop with Chuck D that we announced that we're excited about. So all of that to say, there's something on PBS for everyone on all of our platforms. So a lot of the great work that's happening with PBS Digital Studios that we're super excited about. So I'm just pumped that, we have this opportunity to be on all of these platforms with some really, really, really great content.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but PBS has a different funding structure than maybe some of the other, major media brands, right? I mean, it's still publicly funded. Is that correct?
There is public funding for some of PBS's content. PBS is also a membership organization. So those local PBS stations that I mentioned pay dues into PBS for content and other services. And then we also have a model of underwriting and foundation and corporate support. So it's a bit of a mixed model in terms of funding that is not necessarily the traditional model of all being I'm paying for a streamer each month. So you're right, that is a part of our funding makeup.
It would be dishonest if I didn't say, like, I don't have cable anymore.
It's okay. It's all right.
To go to other platforms, and I know that you, Sylvia, are making that accessible across wherever you watch your TV.
Go to pbs.org. Go to pbs.org, and you can stream it right from your smartphone or your tablet or your computer, your laptop, and you can also access it from the PBS app. So there you go.
All right. No excuses. No excuses. And definitely, as we were talking about earlier, in terms of, not just the great content you have coming, the accessibility of it, but also this is about convening. It's about community. It's about all of us supporting these real and honest creators and topics and conversations that, are telling stories that need to be told, adding perspectives and the diversity of perspectives that are key to our humanity and understanding of other humans. So Sylvia, thank you so much for doing that. I hope our listeners will continue to support PBS, both by watching and engaging with the content and through their dollars and support and amplification as well.
It was wonderful to be on with you today, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Take care.
If you're looking for more inspiration, some insight, some advice, join us for our roundtables. We host them every week at Ellevate so that you can come together with some of the members in our community, get to chatting, get to knowing each other, get some advice. Trust me, these are really nice people. Really, really nice people that want to help you get ahead. So you can join me at the Executive Roundtable on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. The topic we have coming up is I've been asked to join a nonprofit board. Now what? And I will tell you, I've felt that way before, so I'm very excited for this topic. Sometimes you're like, okay, now I want to help, I want to do, but how? It's very exciting to have this conversation. A Rising Leaders group, which meets Thursdays at noon Eastern, will be talking about evaluating your goals and aspirations. Very good topic as we come back into the fall and wrap up with summer. And our entrepreneurs who meet on Thursdays at 4 p.m. will be talking social media growth tips for solopreneurs. So very excited.
I'm really interested in the executive topic of now what, because just that next step after, I'm interested to hear how conversation goes.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about my nonprofit involvement because I kind of stopped a while ago in some of the boards I was on because I wasn't feeling like I was having an impact, and it just felt like I was wasting my time and not being beneficial for them or for me. So I think this conversation is really important for anyone who wants to serve on a nonprofit board. So we'll see how that goes. Hope to see you all there at the roundtables. And we can start going back into our History Makers segment today. We have a few good ones coming up. Do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, Nisha Butler opened STEM Champs, the first Afro-Latinx owned education center in New York City. So in your town.
Wow, I can't believe that's the first Afro-Latinx owned education center. Wow. With such a huge community in New York City. That's baffling, but really happy that it's happening. Sarah Sabri will become the first Egyptian to fly to space. That's exciting.
Next, Yoshimi Yamashita became Japan's first woman professional soccer referee. Soccer
Nama,
is intense. I tried it and I said, oh my gosh, I'm out of breath. I'm not doing this again.
you tried playing?
Yes. And I was like, so I got to run there and back. And there, I was like, too much.
I never even tried. I can tell you that. And it was big where I was, where I grew up in El Salvador. And we don't call it soccer, we call it football, but that's a conversation for another day. That is actually the sport where you use your feet to move the ball. Conversation.
It does make more sense. I will give you that.
Naama Rosen Greenberg became the first woman to serve as the military aide to the President of Israel.
Interesting. Wow. Well, I also have that Oksana Masters became the first para-athlete to earn a nomination for Best Athlete in Women's Sports at the ESPYs.
So cool. She's great. Preeti Maska became the first woman cyclist to cover the Lemonali route in 55 hours. I do not know what that means, but it sounds like she was fast.
I would say. I agree with you. She was fast.
I always get baffled by some of them. This one was Nisha Butler kind of celebrating her first is really exciting, really great, but also a little baffling of like, how has this not been a thing before? So it's mixed feelings, but we're going to keep celebrating first because we want there to not have to be any more first.
Right? But growth is happening, so day by day, right?
Day by day. That's right, day by day. Next week, we're going to hear from Pat Headley. She's an advisor to an investor in innovative growth companies, a visionary brand strategist with a broad global network of experts and resources. Pat counsels CEOs, entrepreneurs, and management teams. She's the author of Meet 100 People, a how-to guide to the career and life edge everyone's missing. So we'll see you here next week.
Thanks so much for listening to Ellevate. If you like what you hear, help a girl out. Subscribe to the Ellevate podcast on iTunes, give us 5 stars, and share your review. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at EllevateNTWK, that's Ellevate Network, and become a member. You can learn all about membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. And to our voiceover artist, Rachel Griesinger. Thanks so much, and join us next week.